the tape and see how often I'm wearing the same outfit.
I don't think people will notice.
I only get dressed once a week.
I think we have an opportunity to sell the pants.
Yeah.
They're very comfy pants.
Yeah, let's get an affiliate code on that.
I had jeans on, but it's far too swampy for jeans. So I switched.
Okay, oh shit, hold on. Yeah. Here we go.
Back in the day when I was hanging out with Glenn Beck, we were talking about this, that he, when he was on Fox, was really curious to see if anybody noticed costumes. So he would just go off camera, switch his tie, come back on, and would just do experiments to see, and like no one ever noticed. No one has any idea what you're wearing.
That's actually quite comforting.
Yeah, like when I was on Fox, like that was something that the hosts were really worried about because we had to shoot stuff out of order, and so they'd like, okay, what were we wearing last Tuesday? And like, no one cares, no one knows.
No one gives a shit.
I don't know if that's as true for chicks though.
Well, that's
you're getting
women will keep an eye on that.
Yeah,
and it's not continuity.
But it's a good thing that we're doing a political podcast, a place where no women listen.
That's true.
Or watch.
That's true.
I've seen our YouTube, because YouTube gives us demo stuff in a way that podcasting doesn't. Just a field of sausage. Just an Italian deli shop.
Okay. That checks out.
So they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit.
So what you're saying is I should keep wearing my PJs.
Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want.
If you want to get more men, start wearing a push-up bra, and maybe we'll be able to expand demos. That's the Fox model.
That's it. Yeah.
I've thought about, like, what if I did my show but topless? I feel like I would have a much bigger audience.
You always go too far.
Yeah.
You
Why?
just got to. You just got to put. Yeah. You just got to push them up.
You don't even have to
Yeah.
buy anything.
Just
You
the
don't need to
top
show
of
the
them
nips.
is enough.
Yeah.
Like if I drop trousers a little bit, show some neck, I go to prison. You can hike up those puppies and just get some more views. Just stay there.
I've done that with my green shirt. You guys like the green shirt.
Exactly.
Very complimentary whenever you bring it on. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Heaton, you almost died.
Yeah, I've been attacked multiple times this last week by inanimate
This is our
objects.
new regular segment as we open the show. What's wrong with Heaton today?
Yeah, okay, so 4th of July, I went to Lake Travis with some friends, and we scaled down a rocky bouldered sheer cliff to get to the beach. It is not a path. We made our own path. We get there, we get into the water so that we can not be hot on the 4th of July, and we're getting up to dusk, and they're like, oh, there's going to be fireworks, and I will add, the only sober person in the entire group, go, hey gang, we should move all of our stuff now before it gets dark, because it will not be fun to traverse this rock cliff schlepping things after dark. Let's do the responsible thing. So we do that. We move everything in the car. We go to the top of the cliff. We watch the fireworks display. We jokingly sing Proud to be an American at the end. And then I turn around and stand up by just, like I'm in a seated position, and I launch up, and I immediately spear my forehead deeply with a very sharp branch, and I go, oh no, and I put my hand up, and it's covered with blood. Blood's dripping down my eyes, and then I go up and I touch it, and I'm like, yeah, it's like a dent. There's like a dent in my head, and so summon the rest of the group, and I'm like, I think, I don't know, do I need to go to the hospital? And they all have like, oh fuck yes, of course you need to go to the hospital vibes. So somebody tries to drive my car and can't, so I'm like, get the fuck out. And so I have to drive, and blood's gushing down my face. I go to the emergency room, and which I would say, not the ER, the family doc in the box clinic thing.
In.
Huh?
Just in, so you're more in frame. Go. Keep talking.
Okay.
You were scooting out of frame.
Okay. Yeah. The doctor is like, hey, so the wound is too big to sew. We can't stitch it up. It's too large. There's not enough skin, and so we can't do it. Good thing is, didn't go to the bone. Do you do a lot of work on camera or anything? And I'm like, yeah.
Funny you should
At
mention.
least once a week. I'm nominally talent. And he went, yeah. Well, plastic surgery's come a really long way. They can really do a lot of interesting stuff. Also, I don't know if you've seen these Westlake billboards here in Austin, but the nurses are very attractive. So you'd have a good time. He's just setting up this whole fucking scenario of like, I am now Quasimodo.
Yeah.
And I go home and I'm like, all right, this is going to be a thing. Fortunately, I will say the day after, I slept 13, 14 hours. The day after,
which is always a great sign after head trauma.
Yeah.
A great sign after head trauma is the exact symptom of a concussion that you sleep for 13 hours.
Yeah. But once I got it cleaned up and the swelling went away, it's not that bad. It's actually not that bad. It's
You have a tiny Band-Aid.
Yeah,
It's very small.
It's about the size of a quarter. I do not think I will need plastic surgery. It will probably scar, but I don't think it'll be a horrible scar. And if anything, I think I'm entering peak Doc Brown from Back to the Future years.
There you go.
I have the crazy hair.
Yeah.
And last week you said I looked like Christopher Lloyd.
I did.
Now I've got this. There was a whole day where I had visions of the flux capacitor. Then 2 days later, on Friday, I go to have lunch with Brian. I bring my dog Wallace in the car. I open the door to the car. Normally what Wallace does is trot to the front seat, and I put a leash on Wallace. And
Yeah.
we go in. What Wallace did was go, actually, I'm going to run out of the car to the highway. I think that's a really good plan, is to run fast as I fucking can straight to the highway. So I scream, no, Wallace, no. Also, I've taught Wallace that I instead of no, I say, This is a tip for dog owners at home. Is no for dog, because I say no a lot. So I'm going, no, no, stop. Like that. And Wallace is fucking booking it to the highway. And I'm like screaming, and I flip over and just tumble on the asphalt and bang up my fucking leg, have a hand-sized abrasion on my midriff, bang up my other leg, bang up my elbow.
So it's all like road rash.
It's all road rash. It's straight up road rash. And I'm able to get him. He's fine. He doesn't know why I'm angry at him and why we don't go on walks anymore, because I can't walk right now. So anyway, I've been kind of banged up, but it'll all be fine. It'll all be fine.
It sounds like quite the metaphor for this 4th of July. Like, it just kind of fits.
Yeah. You do look put together. You do.
You look fine.
No. You look like a lost Bee Gee brother.
My favorite comments, I have to say, all come from Justin. Justin called me on, I guess, Friday or Saturday.
Friday afternoon.
To talk to me about the S&P, and I was like, hey, man.
As one does.
About the British election, and I was like, hey, I appreciate you wanting my insight. I just woke up. It's like I had a head injury last night. I don't know. I've not read any of this stuff. And Justin's immediate comment after the second injury was, what gypsy did you offend to be cursed in this manner? And then Justin, in between the injuries, drove over a stack of paper, like a ream of paper, and a card that said, "We clipped the tree that went for you." So
That's good.
gold stars to Justin as a friend, but in particular as a wit.
Also, this is now doubling as the world's first reverse intervention.
Yeah.
Heaton, we're gonna need you to start drinking. It's too dangerous otherwise, and we're all very scared.
I think I'm going around that position. As I was driving myself to get to the, like, I was where everyone else in the car had been drinking.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, I'm the adult who wanted to avoid injury, and somehow I'm bleeding, and I'm like, this happened less often when I was a drunk. Maybe I'm just more fluid when I'm a drunk. I'm certainly better at dancing. Maybe that helps with it.
Although, I guess it's a really good thing you were sober, because how else would you have gotten to the hospital?
It was also one of those things where everybody was panicking. Abby can drive my car. She's driven it regularly. I'd also loaned my car to Lauren for a month. So there were 2 people in the car familiar with my car in addition to me. But my friend Kimmery stepped up as group mom. Was like, I'm driving. And then I was like, get the fuck out, because she didn't know how to turn the car on because it's a push button. So there were people that could drive it. It was just kind of a moment of collective panic.
Yeah.
Head wounds bleed a lot.
Yeah, further exacerbated by where we were, a very windy road, and everyone in the car is like, hey, Heaton, we appreciate you're trying to get to the place very quickly, but it's going to be a maximum of a minute if you drive this as fast as you can. So I had to slow down.
Yeah. Well, and also you got there before the fireworks, right?
I did. So the silver.
So you beat all the one-armed pirates that were going to make their way in later. You beat the rush.
The 3 silver linings that I took from that, back when I thought I was going to have reconstructive surgery, based on all input from medical officials, was silver lining, one, if it had been 3 inches lower, very different story. Very different story. I'm glad, if it was going to hit me in the head, this is a pretty good place to be hit in the head.
Wait, I'm confused. Did the tree hit you or did you hit the tree? Because it sounds like you hit the tree.
We're going to have to talk to witnesses. I feel as though I was personally attacked. But yes, some people would argue from a physics perspective that I'm the one who launched myself.
That you
into a
propelled
tree.
yourself into the tree.
If you want to be a dick about it, I launched myself into a stationary object. Yes, fine.
Okay.
It could have been a lot worse. And, I go camping a lot. If I was going to have a head injury requiring medical attention, I'm glad it happened 5 minutes away from a family emergency room thing, as opposed to what I normally do, which is fuck off 1 to 3 hours from cell phone reception on windy mountain hills.
By yourself?
By myself, when like Wallace would have had to drive the vehicle, who I don't trust right now because he fucking tried to bolt to the highway. Yeah. I can't trust him on the road.
He's trying to murder you.
And it was also...
He yearns for the open road.
Yeah. It was before the drunks came in too. I talked to the ER guys about that. Because we got in about 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock. And I was like, so we beat the rush, right? And like you could just see on their faces like, yes.
Yeah.
This is very pleasant for us, Mr. Heaton. Us tending to your head wound.
Oh my God.
Well, for anybody who was hoping that Heaton would crack his head open and pour forth his wit and wisdom, just know the tree beat you to it.
Yep. That was. Yeah, when we were talking about the S&P, just was like, well, I wanted to crack your head open and get your opinion on the S&P, but it sounds like the tree beat me to it. Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
In our little sitcom, Justin was the wisecracker.
Look at that.
Well, I'm glad you're okay.
Whereas I'm the pratfall guy. I became the Kramer, just like walking into doors.
Well, the hair does lend to that vibe.
It lends.
Yeah.
Let's stop there.
Yeah.
We're going to stop there.
Heaton, don't say the N-word.
Don't. From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
I'm Andrew Heaton.
I'm Jen Briney.
And we're not wrong on this edition of the program, the unfolding saga of the American presidency, as we discuss whether or not the 25th Amendment should be invoked. That was introduced by the Republican opposition in the House. We will also talk about Oklahoma State Superintendent requiring public schools teach the Bible, as well as your emails. Let's go ahead and get into this because I am...
living for it?
Well, obviously, this is something that is a gigantic part of my life now, as I am just hooked intravenously into every segment of Morning Joe that might actually affect the nation, and this morning was no difference. But also, we very rarely, I try to vary up the politics stuff because I don't want it to make it just like another extension of PX3, but I kind of feel like we have to double up on Biden conversation 2 weeks in a row. And this is why Congress returned to D.C. this week amid the ongoing controversy of Joe Biden's debate performance. While a fraction of House Democrats have called for Joe Biden to drop his re-election bid, the majority on Monday rallied to his side. This came after Biden sent a letter to members of the chamber on Monday and called into MSNBC's breakfast program, Morning Joe. On the other side of the aisle, the imperative is clearer. Joe must go. Republican Speaker Mike Johnson argued that Biden's condition is dangerous. He supported Representative Chip Roy's resolution, who, by the way, used to be my congressman. So a very Austin-centric balance here between Lloyd Doggett being the first Democrat to call for him to drop and Chip Roy putting forth a bill for Kamala Harris to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Biden. Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik, a Trump VP possibility, criticized Biden's fitness for office and accused Democrats and the media of covering up his condition. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre answered to an animated press corps this week who wanted details about a Parkinson's specialist who has visited the White House 8 times in the last 8 months. Jean-Pierre confirmed the next day that the doctor was part of Biden's annual physical in February, but said that that Biden has not seen any neurologist since then in any capacity. By the way, this was written yesterday, this morning, on, again, the clearinghouse of the Democratic Dark Night of the Soul, Morning Joe. Nancy Pelosi came on and said, well, he really needs to make a decision when educated that he has already made his decision, as he sent in his letter, she said, well, he should really think about his decision and he should really make a decision and do whatever he wants. Then, right as we are about to record, George Clooney wrote in the New York Times saying that
George Clooney.
that Joe Biden was not the man that he knew not only 10 years ago, but 5 years ago when he saw him at the big fundraiser that George Clooney hosted for him in Los Angeles, not but a few weeks ago, saying that he was the exact same man he was at the debate. So, therefore, throwing first-person cold water on Joe Biden's preferred narrative that this was just a bad night, as opposed to something that is a longer-term condition.
Back up, I want to make sure I understand some of this stuff here. There was a Parkinson's doctor
Yes.
that came to the White House, and the Parkinson's doctor said, I've been there once as part of a routine check. What was the references to 8 times? Is that confirmed?
He is on the White House logs as visiting 8 times in the last 8 months.
He's a Parkinson's specialist?
He is a world-renowned Parkinson's specialist.
Well, there could be a lot of people at the White House with Parkinson's. I'm joking there. That is not a possible, but not likely.
Well, the White House is saying that there's people, like veterans, that go to the White House medical, whatever it is, for treatment.
Oh, yeah, it's got that garage that they just open up. They have like a little Red Cross tent in there, and like veterans can come in for lollipops and tetanus shots. Fuck that. No, it's not. No.
He is also a Botox specialist, apparently. So there are some.
Never mind. Take back what I said. Okay.
Yeah.
But these last 2 press conferences or press availabilities with Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, who, by the way, wrote a book for which was publicized with how to know that you're in the middle of a doomed campaign, as she worked for Representative Weiner and I forget the other.
Oh my God, I want to read this book now.
Yeah,
is it an actual book explaining how to see the?
It's her biography, but that's how they sold it. Is how do you know you're in the middle of a doomed campaign?
Wow.
By Karine Jean-Pierre. Jen, let me ask you this.
So now this is great. Just whatever Republicans want to talk about her, just always say Karine Jean-Pierre, author of How to Know When You're in a Doomed Campaign. Just always associate that with whatever she's and then what she said about the president. This is
Jen, the 25th Amendment has never been invoked in American history. If you were in the cabinet, what threshold would need to be crossed before you considered using it?
You know, I knew this question was coming, and I've been thinking a lot about it, and I'm still torn because I don't know that we've seen it yet, but maybe we have. It's like he's mixing up very important
It's a more complicated question than I think the partisan nature of the moment would make it to believe, because you've been selected from everybody in America to be a part of this president's cabinet.
The person in the United States inevitably becomes president. That's how we design the system.
He had a lot of faith in you. It would be you selling out in a historic way. Mm-hmm. The person who gave you this, likely your biggest opportunity in government up until now. And again, never happened.
Never happened. And when you look at the characters, you know, you named them, Mike Johnson, Chip Roy, Elise Stefanik, these are partisan shitbags, and
they are putting their foot on the gas here,
yeah,
obviously.
They're being gross. And so it's, you know, you kind of want to dismiss it out of hand just because they are such disingenuous actors. But at the same time, if the president can't remember who the president of Egypt is compared to the president of Mexico, like, these are important things. And some of the reports that we've seen since the debate have been, you know, the president knew me quite well and then introduced himself the last time I saw him. And like, that's a level of dementia that
was
I'm
from a
about.
Donor that has been a family friend to the Bidens for decades.
Yeah.
That was according to Olivia Nutsey's article in New York Magazine.
Yeah. So if you get into a situation where the president doesn't know who he's talking to or about, I think that's a problem. And I also, like, I don't know his time awareness. You know, every time he talks about Vladimir Putin, his eyes turn black and he gets all like crazy looking, and it just seems like he's living in a Cold War scenario. So it's like, when it comes to foreign policy, I don't trust his judgment even before the dementia, but even with it, it's like, are you aware of the current situation? Are you aware of recent events, or are you recalling things that happened before? Are you missing key facts? Like, I do have very serious concerns about his ability to be president for the next 6 months. I do. But I don't know if we're at the point, because we did elect him 4 years ago for 4 full years.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like if we're only talking about 6 more months here, we just let the 6 months happen. I don't think I'm at the point
With or without a cognitive test.
Well, so that's the thing too. This fucker won't take a cognitive test. If he were to take one and we had a doctor saying like he's actually okay, that would make me feel a lot better. Instead, what we're getting from the White House are just ridiculous lies. And so that's the other thing too. I don't trust the people around him to be telling us the truth. They're not giving us the medical assurances that we need. So there's just a lot of trust that's missing here, which is why like I can't dismiss the 25th Amendment option out of hand, because I distrust a lot of what's going on here.
Peter Doocy, the White House correspondent for Fox News, who has been the foil of Karine Jean-Pierre and Jen Psaki before her, his question yesterday, she'd passed him over, I think, the previous 2 press conferences, and so eventually had to take a question from him. And his question was, are you guys avoiding a cognitive test because you know that if the answer is wrong, everything's over?
It's a good question.
I think, I mean, it's a little blunt. It's obviously partisan.
But that's what we need with these people.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing I said when Trump was, when he was going with COVID, and there were people asking him like, hey, does it concern you that more people have died of COVID than died during the Vietnam War? Like, it is a partisan question, but you got to answer them. Like, these are questions that you have to answer if you're trying to win a persuasion contest with America. Heaton.
And what did Little Miss Doomed campaign say to this question?
No, that of course not. That's ridiculous.
She's ridiculous. I'm getting real sick of the lies.
Heaton, you are in the cabinet of the presidency, Secretary of Horses. And
equestrianness.
Yeah, and now the word's going around. You're in the secret Slack group. What is your threshold about
this is
invoking?
Great. So, this is actually much more helpful. I'm in a secret Slack group. I'm not having to like cobble together universal precedent for the entire United States. I'm just talking to the other cabinet officials.
Yes.
This is my bright line. If we saw the same cognitive behavior on display in a surgeon or a pilot, would we take away their license? The answer is yes. So I think that the American presidency is one of the jobs where you just don't get to have anybody that's bad. There are certain, you can't have bad pilots. You just don't get to have them. If a pilot is debatable, you yank him. And I'm sure we will get feedback.
We will get pilots. We got pilots.
There are good and bad ways to do that. But if theoretically, I mean, I think pilots, at least on a commercial level, have age limits put in. Theoretically, if those weren't there, and you had a situation of like, well, Buck's a great pilot, but just, once every couple weeks he loses a little bit and he needs to defer to the co-pilot. No, you don't get to have that. And the reason that is important with the president specifically is nuclear codes.
Yep.
We can go back to like Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson had a stroke in his first term, maybe his second term, I can't remember. He had a stroke after World War I, and his wife was basically running the show. And that you could do prior to nuclear weapons, in the same way that you could have a guy like Biden running a company with no problem. I think like if we're in a succession model where Biden is running a media conglomerate or a very large company, you could adjust that and you could go, look, he's going to get a day to deliberate and then he's going to come to a conclusion. When it comes to something like the prospect of nuclear war, which is the thing I'm most terrified of in life, after trees. When it comes to nuclear war, the response time on that is millions and millions of lives hanging in the balance per second of decision making. I don't remember what the exact figure is off the top of my head, but I think it's like 18 minutes, something like that. If they're IBM, this is assuming there's not just somebody that comes out of the Potomac in a submarine. If there are ICBMs that are launched from Russia, we have about 18 minutes for the president to make all of the relevant decisions, call everybody.
Yeah.
And that's a situation where I don't think you can have like a Reagan character if he's in the same boat to try to de-partisan this. Of he's a pretty good guy, but like, after 9 p.m. he's a little bit squiggly. I don't think you can do that. So as a member of the cabinet here, my bright line would be, if a surgeon were displaying the same things, would we allow the surgeon to do surgery? If a pilot were displaying the same level of cognitive ability, would we allow them to fly a plane? I would say the answer to both is no, and yes, we should invoke the 25th.
If Joe Biden's debate performance happened in an airport bar, would you say, and then you found out that was your pilot on your cross-country flight, you'd probably be a little concerned.
Yeah, it's
You'd be a little concerned.
And again, like if we're talking about other executive ships.
But by the way, that was Peter Ducey's other question that he asked was, Joe Biden says that he wants to not schedule anything after 8 o'clock. So if there's an ICBM, a nuclear ICBM incoming, who is handling that?
No, there's a couple of considerations to think about this too. Let's say theoretically we invoke the 25th. From a practical standpoint, we would need to think about is the power shift that's going to occur going to put us in even more peril? Like what would the presumably Kamala Harris would just become president, right?
She would, yes.
Yeah.
She's got a functional brain as far as we
that's
know.
true. No,
so.
I think that she can walk up and down stairs unassisted. I think that she is capable of making split-second decisions. Whether they're good or bad or not is left to the voter.
There was a board-certified Parkinson's specialist on NBC. Not InfoWars, not, The Blaze, not a partisan media outlet. This is NBC, regular NBC, not MSNBC. And he said if a medical student saw what you saw from Joe Biden and on a test and did not mark Parkinson's, they would be remediated in their schooling. That it is not only the speech, it is also the low speech that he says, the campaign wrote off as a cold. That's a Parkinson's tell.
Really?
The cold that's not getting any better, by the way.
The lack of rigidity or the lack of activity in his face, his movements. He laid out specifically, he's like, I could diagnose him from across the mall. That man has Parkinson's, and it's not he has too many red flags for it to not be that.
So that's new to me. I didn't know this. I thought the debate was really just, is he going senile or not? But now it has like a medical slant to it at Parkinson's specifically.
And I don't feel comfortable. I mean, there's a reason why, we in 1964.
All the top medical officials in the country said Barry Goldwater's crazy.
Was
you can't vote for him. That seems like a good thing to do.
Exactly.
Empower psychiatric officials to.
And it invented a rule that you cannot, medically diagnose for the American Psychiatric Association, that you cannot. It's the Goldwater rule. You can't pronounce people with things if you are not seeing them. I don't feel comfortable with a lot of this dialogue because I'm not
Joe
a medical...
Biden's refusing to see anyone.
Yes.
And tell us publicly.
Politically, you can't help but have the conversation when not only did we all see it, and at a certain point, look,
and we're still seeing it.
Yes,
that's the other thing.
It didn't get better the next day.
No, it didn't. Like that interview with Snuffleupagus was not great. He had some brain farts in that too. His excuses for the debate were completely unsatisfying.
Which, by the way,
same lies.
He said he didn't watch.
Yeah, they asked him like
clearly he's there,
but he didn't say he didn't.
Autopilot.
He didn't say he didn't watch. They asked, "Did you watch the debate?" And he goes, "I don't think I did." You don't fucking remember if you watched? Yeah, it was.
Oh, by the way, Corinne Jean-Pierre was asked about that yesterday being Tuesday, and she said, I haven't asked him. I'll follow up.
The fuck?
It didn't come up. We were talking about Girl Scout cookies when I saw him, but just regular inter-office pranks. The president's always putting scissors in Jell-O. I just didn't come up.
Yeah, the level of bullshittery from these people, and people in the wild seem to be kind of buying it a little bit.
Like, it's weird because there was a week where it was like I was kind of taken in by that. Remember, I mean, I was at least offering some pushback to the pre-debate senility diagnosis of Biden, where I was saying, look, I've only seen him speak, a couple times, and he seemed fine. This could just be a Republican talking point that's been said so many times that it's become reality, despite the fact having no underlying basis to it. I watched that, like the video footage. It's just the first half hour is just me, like the mitochondria in my body were cringing.
There was an emailer who I sent to Heaton that it's like the first 45 minutes of this debate. You do all of the talking about me. I do all the talking, and Heaton sits there with a face of a man with a thumb up his ass.
Yeah. There was about a week where everybody kind of went, "Oh shit, this is serious," and then the following week, no, actually, like it was like there was this like receding of the waters of bullshit for a little bit, and then they swooshed back in, and then everybody went, "Okay, toe the line."
And in the meantime, Biden's saying he's the first black woman president and that he'll beat Trump in 2020. It keeps happening.
In an interview that they gave the questions to the radio host, and the radio host got fired for it.
Really?
Yes.
What?
For using their questions?
For using their questions.
Well, good. At least
like
some publication.
So, number one, his record on black jobs takes another hit. But
wait, what radio station fired him? Because that's a fairly high level of journalistic ethics. You're not allowed to just take questions.
It was a radio station that caters to black people, hence why that's a very funny joke.
These are softballs.
Yeah,
these are the easy ones.
Which
these
he
are,
knew
these
were
are
coming.
the ones you can do with your eyes closed. I don't know where we are right now. On Monday, everybody got back to D.C., both chambers of Congress, and the rumor, by way of all the chatter, was that the quote-unquote dam was about to break, which I think people have ironically said is the new version of the walls are closing in. But there was a lot of conversation about, hey, people are going to come out here and they're going to say negative things and they're going to say that Joe Biden is going to leave. By people, I mean Democrats, elected Democrats. It didn't really happen. And partly it was because Biden knew that this was the day he had to save his presidency. He sent out a letter to everybody every Democrat in Congress and said, I'm doing it.
Is that what this is? Because this reminds me a lot of the Republicans falling in line behind Trump, where it's like, okay, we know the guy's fucking crazy, but like, we want to win an election. This feels very similar to me.
But at least, I mean,
it feels very MAGA to me.
Here's the thing. People keep saying it's MAGA. Trump won a bloody primary.
He did. That was a real primary. Trump
dispatched a lot of money and a lot of effort. When people are like, oh, the party should force him out. They tried. Now, though, they could have thrown one more person. Theoretically, everybody could have dropped out, and Mitt Romney or somebody could have come in. I don't think that would have worked. No, I think he would have fallen too. So right now, you do have a similar situation, except now he's the sitting president. There was no primary, and to be totally honest, yeah, this is a rickety haunted minecart. Yeah, it's probably going off the rails. But I don't know exactly what your options are aside from try to convince him to step down, and I think that sailed on Monday. He ain't leaving.
He's so selfish.
I've got a stratagem here on this. I've seen some fucking crazy stratagems, by the way, that are not like, I saw one online that was great. It was, all right, here's the problem. The president's gone. Nobody likes Kamala Harris. Here's what we do. Sotomayor retires. The president appoints Kamala Harris to the Supreme Court. That frees up the vice presidency. Then he appoints Gretchen
Whitmer.
And it's like, guys, I appreciate the Rube Goldberg of this, and that you could just convince Sotomayor to step down as part of this weird scheme.
Yeah.
Here's a much more direct scheme that could happen, and it might be the only person other than Joe Biden that could make anything happen at this point. If Kamala Harris calls up Joe Biden and says, I will be resigning as vice president on Monday because I do not believe that you are competent to hold this office and I cannot be part and parcel to this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be leaving this office to put pressure on you. Now, there's two ways we can do this. Either you're a part of this and you step down and I become president, or your vice president steps down in an election year and says that you're not competent to do it. I think she might be the only.
It's a pretty gangster move
he doesn't have it in her.
For Kamala Harris.
It would be, but I don't know anybody else in the country other than Joe Biden that could force his hand.
There's the God Almighty.
Well, which, by the way, and we have yeah, exactly. Not only will be a star in our next segment, but we got a lot of feedback because I said that I didn't think that God himself could come down from heaven and convince Joe Biden to step aside. I am apparently wrong because he said he was the only person in his Stephanopoulos interview, where he also said
a lot of predestination people listen to the show that don't believe in free will. I'm surprised by that.
The other big part of that Stephanopoulos interview, who, by the way, George Stephanopoulos stopped yesterday while exercising in New York City. Somebody caught him on video asking him, hey, how is Joe? Do you think he can serve for another 4 years? And Stephanopoulos said, no.
Wow.
Now,
He
that leaked
didn't
to
realize
TMZ.
he was being filmed.
No, he thought he was actually just talking to a random dude, and the dude sold the clip to TMZ.
Yeah.
And he had to issue an apology for that. But by the way, in my quad that I watch every day, you want to know who gets really animated talking about Joe Biden, who basically did a Glenn Beck monologue yesterday? Jake Tapper.
Yeah.
Somebody else who sat there and looked at Joe Biden during that debate for an extended period of time. There is now.
Jake is saying he's not fit.
He
looks like
he
he's
laid out
gone.
he laid out a case that again would be in a bygone era a Sean Hannity monologue. Like it was just like, as I watched Sean Hannity on Monday because Trump was speaking, that was his grand reemergence after laying low for a week and a half to let the Democrats rip each other apart. And Hannity's monologue was basically the same as Tapper's monologue, which was, let's play all these really embarrassing things that Joe Biden has said. Probably the most embarrassing and damaging that has caught on as a meme is at the end of that George Stephanopoulos interview, when asked, what do you think the stakes are if you don't win based on how you have talked about Donald Trump? And he said, well, as long as I give it my all and I do my goodest job.
Goodest. That's a
Goodest.
quote.
Goodest.
Is it possible he was trying to be folksy and funny? I could see myself doing that.
Watch the clip. I do
don't
know
think
that
so.
when it was written up in the New York Times, the Biden campaign came back and said, hey, ABC changed their transcription on it. It is good as.
No. See, they're even lying about, like, you see it. He says goodest. He says goodest. And he's fucking liars. I'm so sick of it. And I'm also getting very tired. Like, the refrain from all of them is, Joe Biden, we love him. He's such a decent, honest man. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's never been an honest man. And he's always been a selfish man. One of the things that has always pissed me off about Joe Biden that no one ever talks about because it was a sad time in his life, but I'm going to fucking say it, is that when his wife died, they get in a car accident. He loses his wife and his child. His two boys were in the hospital for over a month, but he was just anointed as senator. Does he take a leave of absence or, as I think my father would have done, said, I can't be a senator. My sons just lost their mother and I need to be there for them? No, he goes to fucking D.C. and he takes the train back and forth. What a fucking hero. He's on the train for 3 hours a day working in D.C. while his children are in the hospital. This is a selfish man who has always put himself and his career ambitions above everything else, including his family. And now he's doing it to the entire nation. And it pisses me off because everybody is saying, well, we just need to let Joe Biden decide. Maybe we don't. Maybe this is when the Democratic Party needs to step up and say this is a selfish man and he needs to be removed from office. Because if he does somehow beat Trump, which is what we're all rooting for, we have a man with diminished capacities who's going to be in charge for 4 more years. None of us believes that he can do this for 4 more years.
I don't root for anything. I'm a totally impartial
truth
angel.
I like one of your tweets. I don't know if you were speaking on behalf of somebody, but somebody was like, "This is just conservative talking points," and you were like, no, I am more like an angel. Or I have no feelings. I am above
That was a good
all
one.
these
Trained in the finest institutions.
Yeah. But 4 more years of this, I don't think any of us believe it. And all of the people that are lining up for Biden for their own political reasons are just as guilty as he is. At some point, we need to blame the entire Democratic Party.
They made him.
They decided not to have a primary. If they actually had debates 6 months ago, we would have seen this 6 months ago, or at least been able to have the conversation. But as they're saying now, well, millions of people voted for Joe Biden. We have to respect the will of the voters. There wasn't a fucking primary, which is something we were bitching about on the show.
14 people voted for Joe Biden for the course of the. Yeah, this is one of the other, I think, points that is being hobbled on the Democratic side. The Democratic campaign against Biden or against Trump this election and last was Trump is an existential threat to the Republic, which I have a lot of sympathy for that view. I do. Like I think there's all sorts of problems with Trump, but one, before all of this happened, when the Democratic Party, like, for example, in Delaware, did not allow no labels to get on the ballot based on absolute bullshit.
Florida canceled their primary.
Yeah, it's going, well, okay, it doesn't seem like you care about democracy that much. It seems like, I think a more accurate thing would be, we're the good guys and we should win. I believe you think that. But competitive democracy, I'm not seeing that you are really as full throttle as you want. And now you add to that your standard bearer is the Grim Reaper himself. that seems to belie a lack of seriousness on your part in what you view as an existential threat. If Hitler were running, I don't think you would have gone this direction.
I don't think they believe a word they're saying about Trump being an existential threat. I really think they're lying.
They think
through
it's a
their
good bumper
teeth on
sticker.
that. Yeah, I don't think they actually believe it, because when you actually look and like, I hate that I have to put this disclaimer on what I'm about to say, but I do. I don't like Donald Trump. I do not want to live through 4 more years of that kind of chaos. I don't like his policies. I don't like him as a person. However, when he ruled, it was a chaotic but fairly standard Republican 4 years. Like, he didn't. Yes, the plot that led to January 6th.
With one very, very interesting note at the end.
Yes, but that was more about a man who has never, ever admitted that he lost a thing. And he had to admit that he lost a thing. In this next term, he can't run again. So that no longer becomes a problem. Justin has said this the whole time when it comes to January 6th, and he is not wrong, that Trump did leave.
Yeah.
He had the power to call in the military and do all kinds of crazy shit. He didn't try to do it. He did leave. So I don't believe that we are on the verge of like some Trump dictatorship. I think we're on the verge of some really dumb people running our country for 4 years. But I think the Democrats are perfectly aware of that. So when they say this is the end of democracy, I think they're full of shit. And so that is why I also think they're willing to do this.
And that's why that's. Yeah, if we can come into my world of sick, psychopathic politics talk, it's always been that from a marketing perspective. In a world where you don't actually care about feelings and all you care about is getting people into a booth to hit a button, that was a way to do it. The problem that I think for them is that they have revved that engine so hot for so long. That now that there's a countervailing narrative where Joe Biden is saying, as long as I do my goodest job, I should not be blamed for things, then you now, and this came from the debate, and it has only grown on the left, there is a betrayal of people who believe, wait, you sold me on this. You sold me on this being, this is the biggest moment of my lifetime. This is the biggest election since the Civil War. And number one, you sent in a mental patient to go fight against what you're telling me is a Hitler dragon. And then he comes out and is stumbling over his words, and he doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe it. When George Stephanopoulos asked him that question, what he needs to be prepped on is to say, George, I have been in government for 50 plus years, and I'm going to tell you that if I don't win this election, this should be my only legacy. I'm pushing all my chips in. This is what matters the most. Everything else that I've done won't matter at all unless we push this over the goal line one more time and vanquish Donald Trump forever. If he's, no, it's the goodest job. As long as they do a goodest job, it's fine. What's ridiculous? You have lost. And here's the other problem. His numbers are terrible. The Cook Political Report, which is looked at as a solid and conservative in the lack of risk taking, not the ideological. The Bible for where polls are leaning. They were there before a lot of the Nate Silvers and everybody popped up. Yesterday, they switched 6 states in the Republican direction. So now, according to Cook, the Sun Belt states no longer toss-ups. They are lean Republicans. So that means Nevada, Arizona, Georgia. Now, according to Cook, they are the Democrats are absolutely in the necessity to draw an inside straight with Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. And all of those
the Hillary trifecta.
Yeah, and all of those states are also leaning toward Trump. We're in a situation that Virginia is legitimately in play. New Mexico is legitimately in play, and they have another Senate seat that is up for grabs. And let's remember that Senate-wise, this is the year that Republicans have a very good map. That just happens every once in a while when you roll the dice. Sometimes it's a good map for one team that's playing a lot of offense. Sometimes it's the other team. Right now, the best chance for a Democratic pickup for a Senate seat is right here in Texas. Colin Allred versus Ted Cruz. In what is right now projected to be an R+3 election. If you think that Ted Cruz is going...
That's statistically the most likely pickup?
The most likely pickup.
That's not good.
Everything else they're playing defense on.
Texas is generally viewed as a Republican state.
So not only is this a potential Mondale Dole level thumping in the presidential, But if you are the Democratic Party, you are also looking at the possibility that it could be a 6-seat lead
And is the
for
theory
the Republicans in the Senate, that you're not going to win the House back like you thought that you would after the absolute shit show that Republican leadership has been over the last 2 years? Like, this is...
But like, why is that? Is the theory that people that would otherwise be voting Democrat are being like, okay, I can't vote for the corpse, I'm not voting at all? Is that why it would affect down ticket so much?
Yeah. In presidential election years, you are driven by turnout. All elections are driven by turnout, right? So in a midterm, the turnout can be a lot of different things, but usually the most famous person that's going to be on the ballot will be your Senate seat. So it's like, if it's Dr. Oz versus Fetterman, you know, Biden shows up a little bit, Obama shows up a little bit, but mostly this is Fetterman versus Oz, right? And so you're making a decision based on those two people. That's the vast majority of people who go out and vote are looking at that dynamic. The vast majority of people who go out and vote in a presidential election year is about the president.
Yeah.
And so if Joe Biden is depressing Democratic turnout, which it looks like he is, if you see RFK's number surging, which it currently is, then you are taking out Democratic voters. And yes, there is some split ticket stuff, but in general, unless we are looking at a drastically different electoral result than normally happens, all of this stuff moderates. So right now, a lot of these Senate candidates are running ahead of Joe Biden, some of them by like 8-9 points. History tells us that on election day, that moderates. Your ticket winner, your top of the ticket winner, will dictate what happens down ballot. And so that means House seats, that means Senate seats. You had a New York politician come out and say that New York State is a battleground in 2024. And whether or not, I don't think that Trump is going to actually vie for New York State, but I do think that some of those House seats are going to get taken out. I do think that some of those House seats in California are going to get taken out. And there is a real chance that not only is there a Republican president, not only is there a Republican Senate, those two understood and possibly expected, but there's a Republican House and there is a legit numerical argument to say there is a mandate for Donald Trump's final 4 years in office.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
That's where we are by the numbers now. And when Joe Biden goes on Morning Joe and says, you think the black vote's going to abandon me? Watch. I am. The numbers. It's terrible. His numbers are awful. And unless there is somebody out there, please send it to me. The person who's going to make the numerical argument that isn't just going to be head in the sand, polls aren't real. Because guess what, guys? You believe polls were real in 2020 when it showed Joe Biden leading, and he underperformed his polls then. Imagine if he's underperforming his polls now. Then this is Reagan Mondale.
And what about the money? Because I saw it fascinating. It was like 15 minutes of Ari Emanuel, who I'm aware of because I watched Entourage, and he was the inspiration for Ari Gold, my favorite character of all time. And Ari Emanuel was doing a talk, and he just looked angry. And he was talking about how the donors are going to pull away from Biden. And he was saying like what he thinks would be the thing that gets Biden to actually step aside is if the money dries up. And he's encouraging other donors to stop giving money to Biden. Have you, Justin, seen any evidence of this happening?
Yes. By the way, Ari Emanuel, brother of Rahm Emanuel, Obama's chief of staff, also co-owner of both the UFC and WWE now. He is the chairman of TKO Holdings. Yeah, Endeavor, his agency, wound up getting into content. Anyway, but it's really funny that him and Dana White are polar opposites politically.
Yeah. I like him, though. He's a no bullshit kind of guy. I really appreciated his comments.
Summed up Biden's position as fuck city.
Yes, he did.
But real quick to answer your question.
Yeah.
Yes, specifically LA, the people, the donors are furious. Reed Hastings is furious, Reed, whatever. The Netflix guy, he said he's not donating. And say what you will about George Clooney. Yes, it's a Hollywood actor saying a Hollywood opinion, but he made sure in that New York Times column that he wrote that he has run the most profitable fundraisers for Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden. He did that. He organized all that. And he's telling him to step aside. So whether or not you believe that George Clooney is an intellectual heavyweight for which you should pay attention is up to you.
He's married to a UN ambassador who's got some...
If you want to believe that he is a hood ornament for the money machine of LA, I think that that is absolutely true. Yeah. The only person who has yet to really fall is Katzenberg, who is running the money machine out of LA for the Biden campaign. If you see him drop, then we're in really, really big flashing lights.
Justin, let's say theoretically Biden does succumb to either public opinion or death and is no longer the candidate. He steps down.
Yeah.
At that point, is the money that the Biden campaign has raised, can that only be used by Kamala Harris, or is most of the money going to super PACs that can pivot?
Funny you should ask, because I've done a little bit of not reporting, but talking to other people smarter than me. So, if he stepped aside, which for the record, I don't think he will. Again, I will reiterate, I think Joe Biden is lying when he says that if God came down from heaven and asked him to step aside, he would. I think he would say, new phone, who dis?
Which guys? I've been talking to gas station owners in Delaware, and like a lot of them are Hindu, and they've got cool forearms.
Yeah.
Like, I want to hear from that guy, man.
He's like, I'm gonna need a quorum. So, if he did step aside, then Kamala Harris, it is also her money. She can use it. If it is not Kamala Harris, and some have suggested that there would be a blitz primary.
It's ridiculous.
Which is ridiculous. The argument for it is that it would take a lot of attention away from everything that's happened. It would essentially reboot the attention economy. And now, yes, it would be ugly. Yes, it would be messy. But at least it would open the window and suck out all the air that Biden has left. That being said, if that happened, then that money can be transferred to the Democratic National Committee. So you would not lose it. But what you would lose is...
But you have to do a blitz primary in order to do that?
No. If it's anybody but Biden or Harris, right, then you can transfer all that money to the National Committee, and the National Committee can still spend it. What they can't do is campaigns themselves can buy television advertising for cheaper than any kind of outside organization can, including national parties and state parties. So they would not be able, every ad that they bought with that money would be more expensive than it would be otherwise. But they would not totally lose the cash if, let's say, it was Gretchen Whitmer and Raphael Warnock that were running. But we're like 5 chapters into the crazy fan fiction.
Why do they
novella.
think that Gretchen Whitmer is so popular? Because the only thing I know about the woman is that she's the one that the bumpkins tried to kill. Like, other than that, like, why is she the name we keep hearing?
You mean the FBI entrapped bumpkins?
Yes, those are the ones I'm referring to. That's the only reason that she's famous. Like, Kamala's fine. If they put her on the ticket, I love Jill Stein. She represents my views. I'm voting Kamala. Like, I don't understand why there's
You're
so many
part
people...
of Coconut Hive?
I'm not part of the K-Hive at all. Definitely not, but she's better.
14 people in the K-Hive.
Don't piss off the K-Hive. The K-Hive is...
They're real. But like Harris versus Trump, Harris, all day. Replace him. I'm in. Like, I don't understand.
It's been amazing to watch progressives coalesce around Kamala Harris, somebody that they hated in the 2020 primary. A lot of the progressive voices that I follow now that are like dump Biden immediately, that you will know them in their Twitter bios by the coconut and the tree, because Kamala Harris, in one of her very Kamala Harris moments, told a story about how her mom said, "Did you just fall out of a coconut tree?" And so the Coconut Hive is real.
Okay.
They love Kamala now. There was some Democratic staffer circulated a memo quoting, again, a very Kamala line, that we can go where we need to go unburdened by what has been. It was titled Unburdened by What Has Been. Look, Kamala's there. Here's the problem that nobody's talking about. This is now a cover-up. And everybody around Joe Biden, if he steps down, you are now confirming the central premise of a cover-up, everybody is going to be tainted.
Their jobs. Oh no!
But for Kamala, that's going to be the number one thing. How can you believe anything that Kamala Harris tells you when they're going to play every single time that she said Joe Biden is fit as a fiddle. He's awesome. He's so smart. He's the best man I've ever known. They're going to paint her to be the biggest liar of all time, and it's going to be fresh in everybody's mind. Why?
There's no clean way out of this. We all know that everyone has been lying,
Yes.
but that's also been her job as the number 2 on the ticket. So it's like, these are lies that I'm willing to forgive if it gets the corpse out of this position. Like, we have 2 terrible options. We have Biden and we have Trump. If they replace the Biden one, I'm willing to forgive a lot to just move the fuck on with someone whose brain is functional.
My pitch, right? And people can take it or leave it. Democrats, you can take it or leave it. I wrote it on Substack. Scandal accelerationism. You need every Biden scandal that has ever been under the surface that you have waved off. Make Jamie Comer famous. Make the Oversight Committee famous.
Bring back Tara Reid.
Bring back Tara Reid. Ashley Biden's diary is submitted into evidence on the congressional floor. Everything. And then make the central part of this the Biden family kept secrets. We couldn't know because the Biden family kept secrets. And so that way you have people step down or whatever, but you are isolating it. Because the other problem is, or the other, depending problem on where you want to go, Jill Biden is emerging as a villainous figure to some on the left and has been for many on the right for a while. She is being looked at as
Dr. Jill Biden.
Dr. Jill Biden is being looked at as a Lady Macbeth.
What is she a
figure.
doctor in?
A doctor and being a doctor. That's a whole nother thing.
Is she one of the PhD people? But no, this is an actual question because when I hear Dr. Jill Biden, I'm like, you know that this man is sick, but if she's not a doctor,
she's not a doctor,
PhD kind of doctor.
She's not a doctor.
Okay.
Yes. She also, and this got resurfaced, do you know that she ordered the Navy band to come up with a first lady equivalent of Hail to the Chief?
Oh, for Christ's sake.
No one had
Flotus, who's okay.
It's ridiculous. It is a ridiculous song. It is insane.
I would actually like that to be like 4 times as long as Hail to the Chief, like just absurdly long, like a 15-minute Hail to Flotus.
Wow.
But she's the same one who had the Vogue cover come out 3 days after the debate.
I don't know this one. What was this? Is it her or Joe?
Her in apparently a $2,500 dress.
She looked good.
That the headline was, "We will decide for our nation," which I think when they decided that headline meant the body populace. But certainly after the debate, sounds a lot like "We, the Biden family, will decide for our nation."
Especially after that clip of her at the rally after the debate where she was like,
so good.
You answered all the questions. Good job. If my husband ever talked to me that way, I would be furious.
Sheridan, I'm gonna good faith argument on behalf of Jill Biden in that moment. I think you could interpret her as saying Trump dodged a bunch of questions and you dealt with them all head on. I think you could read it that way rather than patting him on his head and saying you answered all the questions is in the lowest possible thing you could have done.
It reads the way it reads.
Just the way he was standing there, just smiling with the same dopey smile from the debate and like barely moving. It just looked real bad. And it just looks like wifey knows there's a problem and she's pretending in front of all of us like it's fine. And then you have this, cover come out a couple days later.
Hunter is apparently living at the White House now. He's apparently involved in meetings. He is apparently the number one gatekeeper between AIDS and his father.
The crackhead in chief. Just what we all asked for.
Who was on crack?
So if there is a nuclear code shenanigan,
Hunter's there.
We've got Hunter there to assist.
And apparently he knows how to stay up all night.
Yeah, you're right. If you add them up together, if you take NyQuil and DayQuil and then you supercharge them into Parkinson's disease medication and crack, then you add them together, you get a normal person.
Somebody that Hunter Biden was on the phone saying that one of his business partners was the spy chief of China.
God damn.
I mean, look, again, scandal accelerationism.
Wait
But there's plenty of them.
When did the Substack come out? Because I'm on your newsletter. I don't remember getting this.
Well, thanks for supporting me. I think you had already been concussed by a tree.
Probably it, yeah.
I didn't know you had a Substack, so
Yeah, free political
be nice
newsletter.
to Heaton.
Yeah, I mean, look, my opinion is I think that there is a very credible numbers argument to say that the 2024 election is lost, and that what you are looking at now as a Democratic Party is to try to stem the bleeding of what could be an Iraq and Watergate level trust issue with your party. Because this is not going to go away. Everybody who wants to underpants gnome, scandal, step 2, step 3, Gretchen Whitmer's the president. The in between, and this is not a chaotic Trump campaign. This is a laser predator focused Trump campaign. They are going to make this a trust calamity for the Democrats, one way or another. Either Biden stays in and everyone's got to keep covering for him and they got to keep saying, no, behind the scenes, he's amazing. He's doing backflips. Or he goes and they say, how can you trust them? How on earth can you trust them after they did this for so long?
That's the Republicans just pointing out what the Democrats did.
And that's why you need to get ahead of it. Because this isn't about this election. This isn't about this election. This is about the next election and the election after that. Look how long it took the half-life of the Iraq stuff to get off of both people in both parties. It took 8 years for people to stop remembering Iraq as a generational mistrust issue. Ask the Republicans after Watergate how long it took them to wipe the stink off of that.
20, 30 years.
We're looking at a situation that can bloom into that if you do not take decisive action to step away. And that's in my estimation, if I'm looking at worst case scenarios, that's it. And that's why I say scandal acceleration, make all of this famous, make the Bidens radioactive.
Given how much I've heard Democrats talk about gaslighting over the last 6 years,
I
know. They
know.
know how to do it real well if they want to. So
Boy, do they.
Maybe they can shoot the moon. Maybe they can pull off the national gaslighting program.
But I guess, I'm not disagreeing with a word.
Independent energy.
I'm not disagreeing with a word you said, Justin, because I think the political calculus you're spewing is exactly what they're thinking. But to just give up on 2024 when Trump is the other guy, those 4 years, are we forgetting how unpleasant and chaotic they were? For them to just give up on 2024 is so unforgivable.
I'm not saying give up on 2024. I'm saying correct now with the understanding that correction might lose you 2024, but run as hard as you can to first base, even if you know you're getting thrown out. Make this election the example for we are the new breed. We are the new Democratic Party. We are clearing out all of the musty Hillary, Biden, that stuff. Yeah. We're cracking a window. This is the new team. It is Whitmer. It is Bashir. It is Warnock. It is Kamala. We're the new team. We're coming in. You might lose, but guess what? You can always blame Biden. You can say, hey, if this guy would have actually stepped down, then we would have had a shot. And then you set yourself up for the next time. I just think right now it's going to be hard. There's a lot of wishful thinking of thinking that even if you push him off, that helps. It will in the long term. In the short term, there's going to be a lot of pain.
But I want to know, last question on this, I promise.
Yeah.
If they did a very wise thing, if the Biden...
Giddy up.
Yeah, after you get those horses to kick Heaton in the head. But no, Biden campaign comes and says, Justin, I want you to run it. We're going to do exactly as you say. How would you save 2024? What are the names on the ticket? How exactly would you do it?
So I am over Biden.
You are God Almighty.
I am now the DNC.
Coming down with you as his consultant. We will refer to you.
Yeah. What's the play you think they should make if you're in charge?
I believe it can only be Kamala. I think the idea of a blitz primary, I understand what they want to do, but it's too chaotic. It's too stupid. And ultimately you're going to land on Kamala anyway, because she has the best argument. You cannot, if you're the Democratic Party, pass over the first black woman.
Yeah.
The black women are the heart of your party, as everybody else has flirted. black men, Hispanics, of both genders. The one thing that you have is black women. They have not.
Even Biden's claiming to be a black woman.
Even he, as I think we said in the Slack, to borrow one of Biden's adages from 2020, you ain't black, I am. But you have to give her a run. And also, I'm going to whisper to the side, by the way, she's not that good, so we can burn her too. So let's run her in this Suicide Squad mission. And you throw all the money. You know you're probably not going to win. You know this is going to be a scandal. You know that she's going to get tarred by it. But you run as hard as you possibly can, and you pray to God that Trump does dumb stuff, and he can refocus this election on Trump, and that at a certain point, closer to Election Day, you have voters say, really? Trump?
Yeah.
I don't know. And you win a very close election. You understand that this is way uphill. And what you do is just run it is now all in the open. You have Kamala sit down and do a big, wide-ranging interview with somebody hostile. Mm-hmm. You sit her down with Sean Hannity and you say, answer everything honestly. The first time that you saw him slipping, the first time that you saw X, Y, and Z, and be contentious, hold your line. But the one thing that you need is openness.
Yeah.
You need truth. Know that it might lose you this election, but you will survive as an entity, and the party will survive without this yoked to your back.
And then the next 4 years, as opposed to a Biden loss where the narrative is the Democrats lied to us, they didn't take this threat to democracy seriously, and then they gaslit the entire nation and the senility of their frontrunner, the narrative can instead be America embraced racism and embraced misogyny.
There we go.
And, the Democrats had a chance
Yeah.
put up somebody that would have represented the melting pot of American multinational democracy, and instead we have Marie Le Pen, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah,
after a white man careened the country to the brink, it was up to a black woman to try to pick up the pieces, and guess what? She didn't get the credit. Like, there's a million ways that you can spin this, but it has to come from a position of we're declaring trust bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. We are saying all cards on the table. Right now, this isn't about strategy. This is about honesty, because right now, honesty is your best strategy. That is the only thing. And understand, again, run as hard as you can, be as open and honest as you possibly can, because it's going to be an uphill climb. Now, I don't think you're probably going to win no matter what, but you got to show that you are a good steward of the Democratic base's trust, that you are going to do it. You're not going to be a low moral character like Bill Weld and just throw in the towel. You're going to run hard. You know you might lose, but you're going to live another day as an opposition party to Trump, somebody that you're very good at being an opposition party to. And in 2028, you got a real strong bench. You're going to have a hell of a primary, and boom.
Because 2028 will be the most important election.
Democracy will be on the ballot.
Roe will still be on the ballot.
At that point, all you third-party people, this time, really.
But this time.
For the lesser of two evils.
Okay, we went way long on that. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong is where you need to go if you want to get Patreon content. On this edition of our Patreon content, we're going to talk about... What are we talking about? We're talking about... Oh! By the way, as all this is happening, the GOP platform is the most moderate it's ever been in 40 years when it comes to abortion and gay marriage. We will talk about that. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. Oh, also, I hopefully will have put something in the beginning of this. We are live in Milwaukee next Friday at the Skylight Musical Theater. You have to go to their website to get tickets. Skylight Musical Theater. Again, this Friday, Milwaukee. It's going to be awesome. You'll have all of our stories from the RNC, because there's stuff we can say on mic. There's stuff we're only going to tell you at the bar afterwards. Yep. So
we do hang out at the
and
bar.
we hang out.
Yeah.
We hang out. So please come out. Again, we got 2 shows in the Midwest. Chicago and Milwaukee. I assume they're going to be the exact same crowd for both because they're about an hour away. We very much hope to see you guys there. We need every Midwest psycho who drives 10 hours to go see a movie to show up for this show. We know it's a little late in the tickets, but come on out. Skylight Musical Theater next Friday at 7 p.m. in Milwaukee. Come and see us. All right. Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters directed all public schools to teach the Bible, including the Ten Commandments, blurring the lines between religious instruction and public education. Walters, a Republican, called the Bible an indispensable historical and cultural touchstone and mandated its teaching in unspecified grade levels. This directive follows Louisiana's mandate to display the Ten Commandments in classroom, which faced legal challenges. The Oklahoma directive is expected to provoke similar disputes. Heaton, finally, these heathens will be educated in the word of the Lord, huh?
I can't tell you how much this pisses me off. So usually I get invoked as son of a judge, but here we can invoke me as a proud graduate of Oklahoma public schools.
Look at that, a
And,
product.
This is really pushing the envelope too far. So I'll set this up by saying the two broad, I think, honest camps that exist within jurisprudence regarding church and state, and then the tertiary camp that likes to pretend to be one of them. There's kind of two big approaches to the separation of church and state. There are separatists who view the relationship between church and state as kind of the quiet spot in the library, and separatists go, look, you can be religious anywhere you want in the entire country. You can be as religious as you want. You can believe in Vishnu and Jesus at the same time. Yay, religion.
Hot.
It's just in this one specific thing, just in government. It's just in government. It's just in the quiet spot in the library that you're not allowed to talk. That's it. It's just this one little thing everywhere else. And the reason for that is it is corrosive to the state and to religion to have them influence another. This is a bright line that exists for the benefit of both and everybody that is religious or lives under a government, which is everybody. That's the separatist position. There's an accommodationalist position, which views it more like a chain link fence. You can poke your finger through. There is a separation of church and state, but there's going to have to be some amount of give. And the accommodationalists tend to think of the role of church and state as one of neutrality. So they look at it more like, if you want to put up Christmas trees in the state capitol, that's fine as long as everybody gets a shot to put things up in the state capitol. Or you can have a chaplain speak before the beginning of a legislative session, so long as we're not picking and choosing based on religion. It's use the public park for your Mormon choir as long as the public park allows everybody to apply. There's no issue here. It's not that there can't be religion on state grounds. It's that the state has to be neutral in the selection process. That's about, by the way, where the Supreme Court is right now. I'm in the separatist camp. The Supreme Court majority is in the accommodationalist camp. Then there's a tertiary group of people that I know firsthand from my experience growing up in Oklahoma, who really what they want is a British-style established state religion that is tolerant of minorities.
Yeah.
So what they want is, of course, we're a Christian nation with a capital C, and we have a Christian government, and Jews are fine, of course, because we have a Judeo-Christian heritage. Probably Buddhists. Muslims, maybe, because they're religious, that's good, but also maybe they're Manchurian candidates that could be activated by suicide bombers at any time. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Atheists, no, of course, because as we all know, religion is the foundation of all morality, and so if you're an atheist, there's literally nothing to stop you from raping and murdering people. You have a complete debasement. Something like that. And they pretend to be accommodationalists in order to get across the line. And I get real strong vibes from Ryan Walters on that. And the reason I say that, I don't like playing that game, by the way. I do not like trying to discern the inner motivation of politicians. I think that it's a fool's errand, and I'm not telepathic, and I can't see into people's hearts. But I'll pause.
And it is the center of most political attacks.
Yes.
Is assuming the worst intentions of your enemy.
Yes, and I don't like doing that. I really don't. But here's the thing. A good faith argument on behalf of Ryan Walters goes like this. The Bible is clearly a part of history. It clearly influenced the founding fathers, and therefore it is a relevant thing to teach in public schools, and it is something that you would be depriving students of if you were so overactive in trying to eliminate religion from the state that you would actually do a disservice in terms of education that they need to know in order to understand the context of the American experience. I agree with that. And by the way, that already is the law in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, as in most public schools in the country, when you take a history class in world history, they will talk about the Bible. They will talk about Islam. Totally legitimate. But the distinction is there's a difference between teaching about religion versus preaching religion. That's the relevant distinction. And my question to Ryan Walters would be, what needs to be changed in the current setup? Because it's not that Oklahoma forbids teachers from discussing the Bible when it's relevant to history. No one is worried about that in Oklahoma. If anything, it's on the other foot. When I was in Oklahoma public schools, they brought in a goddamn preacher to give an abstinence-only talk. And they did it under the guise, he was a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
They fucking brought in a preacher to brainwash all of us not to have sex before marriage. And if you want to teach your kids that, that's fine. I think that that's the province of parents, but it's not something that belongs to public schools. That's something that belongs to parents. Just like religion, by the way. Religion, very important thing, but it's something that should exist in the private sector. It's something that should be promulgated in the massive, massive, massive private society that we enjoy as a free country. But when it comes to the state pushing things, that's something you got to be really careful on. I look at this and I go, this is somebody who, like a lot of the very religious folks in Oklahoma that are in the conservative movement there, wants the state to be actively promulgating Judeo-Christian values, whatever that means. I've had lots of conversations with this. There's all these folks that think that the Bible is the foundation of the Constitution, the Bible is the foundation of American jurisprudence. Both are false. It's just, founding fathers were religious. I'm not contesting that. But Blackstone has way more to do with American jurisprudence than the Ten Commandments does. Find me laws based off of the Ten Commandments. You're not going to find them. They're orthogonal to one another. It's like saying that AC and DC power should be interpreted under biblical considerations. Nope, they're separate.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a bad step, and I think that this is all resulting from bad calls from the Supreme Court 2 years ago when they did Kennedy v. Bremerton. So previously in the United States, we had a tremendous amount of, in my opinion, good case law that clarifies this. And it's tricky because there's two things that you're having to clarify when you're getting into religion of church and state. You've got the Establishment Clause and you've got the Free Exercise Clause. Congress will make no establishment of religion, what's broadly interpreted as the separation of church and state, everything that I've just been talking about. But also, you have the Free Exercise Clause, which means that you as a private individual are able to practice your religion without interference from the state. And it gets tricky in situations where I am an Orthodox Jew and I want to wear a yarmulke and I want to wear that to work as a public servant. Am I, as a government official, pushing religion by wearing my yarmulke? I think most people would say that's fine, but it does bring up these friction points. And there have been a lot of case law that the Supreme Court had worked out over the preceding 40 years to, I think, very responsibly figure out where to put those bright lines, where to put those divisions. One of the relevant ones that was thrown out by that case was Lemon v. Kurtzman, where a school had, I'm going to back up here, in Pennsylvania, they had a program where the state could pay the salaries of teachers at private religious schools provided they were teaching secular subjects. So at the time, Pennsylvania could pay a math teacher at a Catholic school, and the argument that the state put forth was, look, it's public funds that are going to a secular subject, and so it doesn't really matter that the context is a Catholic church. And the Supreme Court went, no, we see what you're trying to do, but there's really no way you can remove religion from this equation, given that the bishop has to approve them, so on and so forth. Kennedy Bremerton specifically removed the Lemon test, and it also re-legalized prayer in schools, in effect, by saying that there had been a coach that had been praying before games as a public official of the school. By the way, you could pray prior to games. It was just it had to be student led and it couldn't be an official function. You could still do this. It wasn't that you weren't allowed to pray.
If I remember correctly, and this was a weird case because he would go to a part of the field and kneel down and pray, and students would join him. Yes. But also,
and he didn't require everybody to do it, but one I feel
he's a football coach. There's not
the students have to do it.
There's not a lot of free thinking in the world of football. The whole point is that you are operating as a unit. So
right. And so the Supreme Court sided with the coach and basically removed this firewall that had stopped that. Which again, I have to emphasize this here: students could always pray. You could always do prayer if it's really
Yeah.
important to kick off the day with prayer. You could do prayer before school. You could do prayer at lunch if it was a student group. You just couldn't have public officials who are representatives of the state in a period of time where, one, students are effectively prison inmates because they aren't able to opt out of this, and two, are extremely malleable. You have to be very careful with public officials in a way that you don't have to as much when you're dealing with university education, or theoretically, if the lady at the DMV has a cross necklace or a yarmulke, that exerts a lot less influence on me as a private citizen than a kid in that situation. So I think the Supreme Court made a huge misstep in its interpretation of church and state law over the last few years. And I think we're seeing the direct result of that right now with the challenges that are happening in conservative states like Oklahoma and Louisiana. Louisiana, as you mentioned, now it's state law that the Ten Commandments have to be displayed in every school in the state. And that is, to me, a big signal of saying Louisiana is a Christian state.
Do you think that we're going to get more court challenges on this?
Yeah.
That this is the beginning of this process of it getting
I think
defined more?
I think that's exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of people that what they want is, hey, like, we're not going to be like pushy about religion. You can be a Protestant or a Catholic. We're not going to get into doctrine about, whether free will exists or not. Well, let's just all agree we're a Judeo-Christian nation, and Jews and Christians kind of set the agenda, and we won't be mean to Buddhists, but it's not your country. You're visitors. We won't be mean to Muslims, but it's not your country. You're visitors. You're peripheral.
Yeah.
But one more Oklahoma example, because I think it's directly relevant to this shit. Under federal law, under existing Supreme Court law, it's been reaffirmed. You can have chaplains speak at legislative sessions, which I think is questionable anyway. I'm not really worked up about it. It's questionable. One of the frequent things that's invoked in court cases like this and in legislation like this, in places like Oklahoma, is, look, we're being neutral. We're not trying to promulgate any religious viewpoint. We're having chaplains, but anybody can be a chaplain. We're not.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it, and you don't have to listen to the prayer if you don't want to. It's just a nice thing we do. So about 8 years ago, a Muslim imam living in Oklahoma went, well, I would love to give an opening prayer at the legislative session. So he put his name in the hat. Immediately rejected, and then the then state senator that was in charge of the chaplaincy program the following day announced, we will only be accepting applications to be chaplains from religions who have a representative in the state house at this time. So not targeting anybody. This is just, we were already going to do this, but if you've already got a Buddhist in the state house, you don't. But if you've already got a Buddhist in the state house, we
get elected, and then we'll do your prayer.
It was very clear that what they were saying was, look, we're fine with having Protestants, Catholics, Mormons. We're okay with now. We're okay with Mormons now. Maybe I don't know. We could Christian Science, but no, not Muslims. We're not going to do that. But we can't say it out loud. So yes, I think that is in reaction to the Supreme Court case. I think you're going to see a lot more challenges like that.
Jen, Heaton's going to hell. How about you?
I'm going right there with him. It'll
Oh,
be quite a
look
party.
at that.
Yeah. I agree with every single word that you said, so I don't really.
Good job, Heaton.
I don't really have much to add. It's just this one kind of triggers thoughts in me because of my own upbringing.
Because you went to Catholic school.
Well, so I went to a public school until my sophomore year, when, against my will, my parents put me in a private Catholic school.
It's a whole origin story.
Oh yeah, it's a whole thing, and my parents did the best they could. I don't agree with the decision.
Just wait for the
Whatever.
prequel. It's a 6-episode limited series. Jen Rising.
But yeah, I've always struggled with religion. And so the way that it was for me is that I went to the public school, and I had a lot of specifically Jewish friends when I was little. And so I was asking these questions when I was very young, because I didn't necessarily think it was fair that we got Christmas off, but then they either had to skip school or come to school on Hanukkah. And it didn't make sense to me. Why do we get our holiday off and they don't? And so we were struggling with these questions. Why does Santa come to my house but not Debbie's house? So, I was very young having this education, and I really liked the way the public school dealt with it, because it was our religions are different, but they were at least equal in the school, except for the holidays. That was the only one when it came to Christmas and Hanukkah where it felt like mine was
it's a little bit more expensive. Hanukkah's kind of like a spring break.
Yeah.
Well, and Hanukkah moves around.
Yeah.
So that made it difficult too. So that was kind of how it was explained away. But that was the only instance in where I felt like, Team Jesus had an advantage against the other ones. And then I had to go to, Catholic indoctrination after school. And then when I switched to the Catholic high school, I had 2 different kinds of religion classes. So one of them was very much the read the Bible. This is what we believe. It was indoctrination. It pissed me off. I hated every second of it. One of the most fascinating classes I took, though, is what I think would be allowed in public schools and be okay constitutionally, which is that we did read the Bible again, but then we also like discussed the differences between the Jewish part and then where the Jesus stuff came in. And then we did look at the Muslim texts in the Quran a little bit. And then we talked about Buddhism, and then atheism was actually accepted as okay. It was a very cool class that was talking about the different religions
Theology.
of the world. Yeah. And like kind of connecting it to land rights, which is very relevant in this day and age. Yeah, because like if you just look at the map, so much of the map has changed over the last few thousand years because of religious wars. And so that was connected
Heaton
too.
just got so excited for audio listeners, he almost ran his head into another tree.
Yeah, it was a really,
Or in this case, a
really-
burning bush.
Yeah, it was a really cool class. We started with meditation because I didn't even actually understand what meditation was, and that was the beginning of the class. So that one was cool. That's the type of thing, when I look back on my own education, the areas where I was being indoctrinated, I think is completely inappropriate for public schools. But that one class that was comparing the religions, I think would be useful to everyone on earth. And it was great. And the Bible was a part of that.
Yeah.
So when I look at this issue, I'm looking for my own, anecdotal evidence. But I do think there is a place for the Bible, and it really depends on how that's being taught.
I think, yeah, that's, we get into kind of a question about public resources whenever we talk about public schools. And I think what a class that you're talking about, I feel like you can only do at a private religious institution. Because
Which one, the indoctrination one or the cool one?
The cool one.
Well, for sure the indoctrination. one,
Yeah,
but-
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. But even the cool one, because if you are in a public situation, to even bring in ideas of, okay, well, these are texts that we're going to put side by side. The question of, oh, well, this Bible is taken from this text or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It's controversial. I agree with both of you guys. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we're going to cut the conversation right here and go to the emails.
Can I just add one
Yes,
thing?
one last thing. Yeah.
To that. Weirdly, I don't have a problem so much with the vacation thing. I think that, to borrow a problematic word in this context, if the state is agnostic towards resources, I'm not as bothered by that. What I mean by that is if there's a bunch of people that don't have cars that want to go to a church down the road and the state puts a bus stop there, that to me does not violate a separation of church and state. It's basically going, look, we're giving you the public resources to go do the thing you want, and then you get off the bus and you make that decision. So kind of similarly, if they went, look, 80% of the school is likely to leave for holidays at this time, and we're therefore going to have our winter holiday correspond with that. I'd be fine with that if like your school was 80% Hindu or something. What I would be bothered by is we're going to do a Christmas pageant in a public school, where we're going to have. I love Christmas carols, but they have no. I love singing Christmas carols, but they don't have a place in a public school. Like that's the thing that bothers me is the indoctrination.
Yeah. And we never got Easter off. So it didn't feel like it was completely connected to religion because
Yeah.
not all our holidays were prioritized. So
We're not wrongpod at gmail.com. In bed by 8, we're not wrongpod at gmail.com. Last weekend at Bernie's, more Dave writes, does he know any Biden impersonators that have recently gone missing?
Yeah, but it was murder-suicide, so it has nothing to do.
Have you ever seen Dave, Jen?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a fun film.
I caught a fish this big.
Yeah, it was a fun film.
Yeah.
It was.
I'm thinking about doing like political orphanage movie night where we just watch
Ooh.
cool films about politics that aren't horrible. So like My Fellow Americans,
that'd be fun.
Dave, like stuff like that where you're like, oh yeah, I like America.
Trump proofing race. Is it possible to impeach a president during a non-consecutive term for acts committed during the first term? If it is, then could Trump be impeached again using all the evidence currently available for fraudulent electors and negligence on January 6th? If he can be, could attaining or impeaching the president for a second time actually be the thing to keep him from ever allowing to serve a full second term?
So I think it's a really good question that I don't have the answer to, but practically, if this goes down the way Justin has described it's going to go down, the Republicans are going to have the House and the Senate, so the answer is no.
See you later, alligator.
But I also don't know this, but I'm fairly confident that the impeachment and removal provisions in the Constitution are entirely legislative and outside of the scope of jurisprudence. So I think the House and the Senate can impeach for any reason at any time.
Yes.
I don't think that there's a concept of what do you call it, where you can't double jeopardy. I don't think that exists in this context.
And he has been impeached for January 6th.
Yeah,
But only for the riot. So the fake elector scheme was not a part of that.
You could impeach him for other things, but they're not going to.
Yeah.
Justin was wrong. Oh, we already did this. Yeah. I said that God Almighty could not come down and tell him to step aside, and I stand by it. I stand by it. Press Defense writes, are we stuck with Biden because the political talking head machine can't risk Americans remembering that elections don't take 3.5 fucking years?
Ugh. Amen.
No, the argument here is the opposite. We should have been taking this election more seriously last fall when
We or the Democrats?
The Democrats. The Democrats should have, because that's when you wanted to start chipping away. If somebody had the balls, if Gretchen Whitmer, any of these people that are being talked about right now, had the balls to step up and say, I'm running, anybody but Dean Phillips, who now looks like a run-over prophet at this point. He was so sad. He came out yesterday and said, if this is what being vindicated feels like, it's very unfulfilling.
Yeah.
Wow.
But if they'd done that then and forced debates and stuff like that, then maybe this would have been accelerated a little bit faster. So, yes, I'm right again. I'm with her, writes, would Hillary Clinton be a better candidate for the 2024 election than Biden at this point?
Stop it. Just stop it.
Poll came out by Politico yesterday showing her leading Trump.
You know,
Don't do this again.
you know, the really fun thing, too, is she's not going to be the candidate, but for absolutely 100%, there is a part of her brain that's like, maybe. Like, there's 100%. Like, right now, Jimmy Carter on his deathbed, there's a tiny part of his brain that's like, maybe I should step in and rescue the Democratic Party. Like, that never leaves politician brain. So Hillary's absolutely thinking about it.
But she's not hearing her name being uttered by anyone except for this emailer. So there you go.
And now it's time for Andrew Heaton's Sports Question of the Week. Heaton, pretty crazy. LeBron's banging his teammate's mom and bragging about it.
All right. I don't want to be a dick about this, but the teammate's mom in question that got banged by LeBron James, a fine American, I banged her too.
Wow.
She's banged
really?
a lot of people. Like, don't hold this on LeBron. Like, by the way, fine that she's banged. I don't want to slut shame here. That the fact that his mom is slutty is fine.
You and Savannah.
I'm very pro slut. But like all the same though, like let's not put this on LeBron for being maybe 18th in line after Heaton and a couple other people. So yeah, this is a nothing burger.
Shocking statement from Heaton.
Yeah.
What's weird is all of this within the last 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the Lakers, LeBron James's team drafted his son.
Oh.
Your answer at least proved that you really didn't know.
Wait. Hold on. So, the Lakers, LeBron James's son is playing on the Lakers?
He was drafted by his team, by
so
LeBron's
this was just
team.
a joke that he was making that guy's mom. Oh.
I mean, he is, but you basically called LeBron's wife a slut.
Yeah.
Now I feel kind of bad. I thought making a joke. Like, it wasn't so much to impugn that lady as to just,
just within the bonds of marriage, they had a child. The child was talented enough to be drafted by the NBA.
Democratic Party, I cannot back down. I got to keep gaslighting. She's a slut and a banged herself. You don't believe it, you're a bigot.
Oh, you better hope LeBron doesn't hear this because he's a big dude.
And merch request, right? Stop celebrating, stop crying needs to be a t-shirt.
Yeah, I need to get on that store.
I feel like stop celebrating, stop crying.
It's so good.
And finally, on the Supreme Court, Chevron by the Leveron, but the Leveron was dry, right? The thing that shocked me in this whole conversation about the Chevron deference and oral arguments and decisions is the lack of discussions of the Ninth Amendment. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Chevron deference effectively overwrote the Ninth Amendment by saying that the agency is always right. With the Chevron deference gone, the courts can now shrug their shoulders at the agency's claim to regulatory power, point to the 19th Amendment, and kick the cases out. If Congress wants an agency to regulate something, Congress should explicitly say it. The agencies can no longer invent regulatory powers, e.g. cryptocurrencies, and expect the courts to defend it. The right of the people to do whatever they want should require no less than an act of Congress to regulate as per the Ninth. Oh, weak-kneed Heaton. What do you say to this?
Hey, great point on that. I'd say the two amendments in the Constitution that I think are most twisted and misinterpreted to the detriment of the American people are the Ninth Amendment and the Interstate Commerce Clause. The Interstate Commerce Clause basically has been interpreted as Congress can do whatever the fuck as long as maybe some dollars go across state. Like, literally at one point, they shut down a farm for not, what was it? The farm decided they weren't going to have barley. And so they went, well, that could affect barley commerce nationally because it would lower the price. Fuck you, interstate commerce clause.
Yeah.
Like that, and the ninth one too, because like the Constitution actually pretty explicit, I think, in saying, look, the government can only do that which the Constitution empowers it to do. And about 100 years ago, we went, we're just going to pretend that's not there. So yeah, I supercharge those. I'd be in favor of that.
Jen, anything on this?
No.
All right.
You could severely undercut everything I previously just said, and we had a listener that did it where I tend to be fairly judicious in my interpretation of the Constitution as written. You could go, the establishment of Congress shall make no establishment of religion means what it says, which is Congress shall make no establishment of religion. The legal scholar Randy Barnett is of that opinion. You could maybe sway me to that point, but I don't think Roberts would do it because he's kind of wishy-washy and weird on precedent, so I don't think it's really on the table.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week. Biden. Monday and Tuesday. I put out 2 episodes already. So who knows how many I will put out by the end of this week. I thought that we were done. I thought that he had stamped out the coup. Nancy Pelosi is giving wishy-washy statements, so there might be something else by the end of the week. But Bill Scher, the biggest Biden supporter we've had on our show, told him to resign last week. He came on and explained himself this Monday. And then Evan Scrimshaw, who is a political betting expert, who does a lot of the numbers crunching. He has always been somebody that has personally leaned more toward the Democrats. And he gives, if you don't believe me in my political numbers argument, listen to him because he knows a lot more than I do. Jen.
So the latest episode of Congressional Dish is one that kind of covers what Heaton and I talked about last week, which is the Supreme Court decisions. And I'm working on the Boeing episode. Should be done pretty soon. But there was a plea agreement, so I had to add that to the episode. There's always something with Boeing, and then a fucking wheel falls off, and it's just like every day I have to add a new story to this damn episode. So I'm hoping to close this week.
Yeah. Plea agreement less than what Alex Jones got found guilty for defamation during the Sandy Hook stuff.
Guys, Boeing is great between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. It had a bad evening. It just had a bad episode. You know, we got to remember.
It's a bad night.
It's still a good plane.
Oh my God. Did you guys see the clip? I don't want to say it because it uses the R word a lot, but it's an AI George Stephanopoulos where he's just saying, through every possible part of the American electorate of like, we polled Hispanics and they believe you're the R word.
Oh my God.
We polled black people. They say you're the R word. We polled Hispanics. They call you L the R word. We even polled R people. They think you're the R word. And then it just goes to the real clip of Joe Biden saying, it was a bad night.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I have not seen it.
I'll send it to you.
This week on the Political Orphanage, we are talking about the British elections which just occurred. What I am interested in that one is what is the changing landscape of the British electorate? When I started looking at the polls, it's not so much that Labour won as the Conservatives lost. And I'm not speaking in some quippy way. What I mean by that is Labour didn't actually get much more of the vote than it did the last elections, like 0.6 or 1.4, somewhere in that range. What happened was the Reform Party got 14%. So the Nigel Farage, very conservative, very populist party that started up basically ate the lunch of conservatives and kicked it over to Labour. So I interviewed somebody who's lived that. I interviewed Douglas Carswell. He is a former MP from the United Kingdom. He started out as a conservative. He left the Conservative Party. He became UKIP, which is Nigel Farage's outfit that's transformed into Reform. And we talk about what's happening in British politics and where it's going to go. And then in the second half, I bring on a Lib Dem, and we really just get into a ton of intricate third-party stuff. We talk about the Lib Dems. We talk about...
Big night for the Lib Dems.
Big night for the... We're back! We're back, baby! We're back to being a quasi-functional third party. Certainly more than any third party in America.
Yep.
And so, we talk about that, the implosion of the S&P. And, so I think it complements your episode very well, Justin. I enjoyed your episode.
Yeah.
As per usual, you shine on tactics, strategy, and what's going on. as per usual.
I think I pretty much nailed it right up until I said that reform was not going to do as well and that the conservatives would overdo their polls, which means I'm retiring from British political projection.
Well, and I did my thing, which is I wait a week and then smoke a pipe and go, how can I bring in Edmund Burke to this equation? That's exactly what I do.
Mission accomplished, and mission is spelled with a U. All right, that'll be it for us. Until next time, for Jen Briney and Andrew Eaton, I'm Justin Robert Young, and we're not wrong. See you in Milwaukee.